Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented by the new pucksandpitchforks.com. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker for North and South Jersey, the Garden State. This is episode 240. Yeah, episode 240 of the State of the Fan Address, titled Hughes Cup Fallout. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with pucksandpitchforks.com editor-in-chief, Nick Villano. Nick, what's up?
We have so much to talk about, and which is why I'm glad that we're in a few minutes we're going to be bringing on Chris Bengel of CBS Sports, because he's a man of eclectic tastes. He writes about a lot, so we'll be able to talk about a lot. But obviously we have the Hughes Cup. Devils coming out on top after just did you stay up, Sam?
Yes,
you did, right?
I did Devils After Dark.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And on top of that, thank you to all those voting for Peyton. Keep on voting for Peyton for Bartender of the Year. I'll put out the link.
Let's go.
I'll put out the link. And also, I've gotten cameo requests. I actually have a cameo account right now. I got approved.
Okay.
I guess I'm officially a celebrity.
Okay. Listen, I've said this on this podcast so many times. I'm as famous as I want to be. I am not want to do cameos famous, but I applaud you for bringing in the revenue streams. That's always good.
No, I do it for the fans, and I also do it for the Mrs. Wu Fund.
Yeah. So I'm wearing my alternate hat, which I actually really like this hat. This hat came out really nice, but I did it because, did you see the Utica jersey? Utica came out with a nice black jersey with a sick logo, little Devil's flare on their logo, the little Devil's horns on the end of the U.
Yep.
Love that. And honestly, it's just such a sick black jersey. They did it the right way. A lot of people are saying, like, oh, Devils, like, look at this for the Stadium Series jersey. So that's something really cool. I'll probably be writing about that tonight on the new site, pucksandpitchforks.com. And pucksandpitchforks.com has a nice new redesign for everybody out there. I've gotten a lot of nice feedback. Really cool to see. There are some, will say, for those who look at it on desktop, there's some kinks that I have to kind of fill in on desktop that just happened with the migration. So, but on mobile, it looks, it's chef's kiss already. But yeah, so it works fine on desktop. There's just things are not in the places that I want it yet. But for that mobile version, it is magnifique. It is just very nice. So go to pucksandpitchforks.com while you listen to us. Read some articles in the background of the interview that's going to happen in a couple minutes. But Sam, here's where I'll start with actual Devils content. After the Devils made that come from behind win, and we're going to get into the win itself, what we feel the good is, what we feel the bad is, how we feel moving forward about goaltending, how we should feel about Hughes. But just looking at the standings, and this is that, what's happening tonight, notwithstanding, but the Devils are 2 points out of a wild card spot. They are 3 points out of third place, and I believe 4 points out of second place in the Metropolitan Division. All those teams ahead of them, which is the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Hurricanes, all have games on the Devils. They've played more games than the Devils. So the Devils just need to take care of business on this trip. If the Devils win 3 of 4 or they need to come out with 6 points. So whether that's winning 3 games or winning 2 games and taking the other 2 to overtime, they need to come out of this with 6 points. And they're right back in this race. Not only that, they might be in a playoff spot. So as bad as it's been, Sam, as bad as the season has gone, the Devils are right there after last night's win. And by the way, this is a good Vancouver team. This is, a team that's going to go to the playoffs and probably make some noise this season. already made the first big trade, getting Nikita Zadorov. This is a good team, and the Devils went into their barn, put 6 on their goalie, who's in the Vezina conversation. So, there's a lot of stresses and negatives that are happening with the Devils after last night's game, but it could be so much worse.
Yeah, it could be so much worse. I really think that last night's game was the first step. Just a lot of work that needs to be done, Nick. I mean, we've gone over and over and over again, but the one thing that they don't lack is scoring in the regular season. So that's the good news. When they're fully healthy, they can score. It's when they're not, it's everything is suspect at that point.
Yeah, I agree. Scoring in the power play, which kind of go hand in hand. I'll say this: the penalty kill is a problem. That might be a bigger problem than goaltending. Because here's what I feel about goaltending: is Vitek's problem is one thing, and he kicks out his rebounds, and they're juicy every single time. Mm-hmm. Like on 4 of those 5 goals last night, it was off a rebound, and it was off his pad. The news is out that if you shoot low on Vitek Vanacek, a juicy rebound's going to come in. Now, this is twofold. A, Vanacek has to figure out how to stop those rebounds. Cover up the puck, get in front of the puck. Excuse me. Get in front of the puck. I'm so excited, Sam. I'm so vamped that it's coming out of me from all orifices. You got to get in front of the puck. You got to stop kicking out your leg. And maybe just let it go past you, because a lot of those times they're not even shot. Like the shot on, I think it was the Besser goal. The shot at Vanacek wasn't going to go in. It was going to go way wide. And he kicked it to Besser. I think it was the Besser goal. Maybe it was the Miller goal. I'm trying to remember all the goals right now. But the jig is up. Shoot low on Vanacek and make sure there's a man in front. Now, the second part of that, Sam, is these defensemen have to clear the front of the net. And, I've always, this is kind of your MO. Like, you need to bring the beef. And I've always been like, oh, you just want to have the most skilled defensive unit. But right now, this team is relying on poke checks and trying to block passes. And that doesn't really work with what's not working with this team. What's not working with this team is giving up juicy rebounds. And that isn't going to continue to that's never going to stop if you're letting guys in front. You have to do something to quell this situation, and it's really up to strategy at this point, right? It has nothing to do with skill level. We've seen Vitek Vanacek make amazing saves. We've seen this defense, send the puck the other way, but they can't, a lot of scoring is happening because of the rebound control.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, that's something that we took for granted with Marty Brodeur. He used to gobble up the first shot, and you didn't have any chances. Now, Corey Schneider was very good on the second, third, fourth chances from those rebounds. Mm-hmm. He was excellent. The problem is he did it all the time, and that kind of burnt him out, and that's why he had the hip issues, right? So I honestly think right now that you're absolutely correct. And, Simon Nemec actually cleared the puck a couple times. Did some nice work clearing the puck when those rebounds happened.
Yeah. Nemec has been fantastic. He's been better than I would have expected. Coming from a guy who's
same as Luke Hughes.
Yeah. Luke Hughes, I kind of expected it, but just because of how good he was in the playoffs, at least we had like a foundation. Nemec, we saw a really good player in the preseason, but he, down in Utica, there's been some issues with the defense. But Mark Dennehy, the coach down there, was talking about how they prepared him for this and they set him up for success. And they, almost to a point that they were sacrificing wins, right? They made development of him, one of the main priorities there.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me that they have these kind of problems down in Utica.
Yeah, it happens. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
No, but we should ask our next guest that's coming on. First time coming on this program. His name is Chris Bengel, NHL writer for CBS Sports. You can find him on Twitter or X at Bengel CBS. Chris, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Doing pretty good, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on tonight.
Oh, we're doing great. Chris has been busy today. He had to write about Taylor Swift. He had to write about all the happenings. Are you stuck on Soto watch as well? Because I know you kind of have to delve into other sports sometimes.
So I actually write our gambling newsletter in the afternoon. So I throw kind of some of those top stories in there, and that was one of them today because we're, I guess, sort of waiting for the deal to be done. It sounds like maybe tonight, maybe in the morning. We'll see, but Yankees fans rejoice, I guess.
You sound dejected on that. Are you not? You're not a Yankees guy.
So I'm originally from the Philly area, South Jersey to be exact. So I'm a Phillies fan. I don't know that I thought they would make a run at Soto, but obviously, hope for something like that. But definitely don't want to see the Yankees do well ever, just out of principle.
Yeah, it's fine. I actually currently live in South Jersey, funnily enough. But I grew up on, more near the shore, so that's more New York sports realm. But we had to be big Devils fans because that's the only New Jersey team that's stuck around.
Absolutely.
Cough, cough, Nets. But big game last night. The Hughes Cup. It was the first time I didn't realize this. I actually got this, I think, from your article, that Jack Hughes was 5-1 against his brother going into last night's matchup, and I believe he's 6-1 now against Quinn Hughes. But last night was the first time that we saw Jack and Luke play Quinn. So at first, I want you to talk about the game. And then I kind of want you to talk about the Hughes star power. So what were your initial thoughts of what you saw in that game? And then kind of go into are these the next big stars in the NHL, the transcendent, the Gretzky's, the Lemieux, the Lindroses, the ones that transcend sports a little bit.
So just overall, the game obviously was thrilling. Maybe for Devils fans, not as thrilling as they would want it to be. But obviously, yeah. To have that 5-2 lead, to see that dissipate is got to be obviously dejecting. That's obviously been a big issue. The goaltending has been the story for the Devils the majority of this year. They're scoring 3.7 a game. They're putting the puck in the net. They have all these goal scorers. They have no problem in that department on most nights. Mm-hmm. But to see, kind of give up that big lead is obviously, a huge deal. But they were able to persevere, avoid overtime, and get that win late. So obviously that's, does show a little something. They have that little bit of moxie that they were able to come back and get the job done. But, I just feel like last night you saw it. The Hughes connection was huge. Jack was, the difference in the game probably with 3 points. Huge night for him. Continues to build off of last year and his career season. He's just electric. There's no other way to say it. Obviously facing his brother for the first time was, interesting because I don't know that many people expected the Canucks to be kind of where they are at this point in the season. So having, this matchup actually means something on top of it being historic was a pretty cool thing to see. I think, obviously we're going to see a lot more of this. We'll see it later this year. I believe they play in early January. So we'll see it again, which is pretty cool. And, I think as far as, even just to the casual fan, maybe not even a sports fan, if you're, to see this headline, I think it's kind of a cool thing because you don't really see, three brothers playing against each other. We saw it with the Stalls last year, but aside from that, we just don't see it very often. It hadn't been done, I believe it was 1989 with the Broughton. So, obviously that's something that just doesn't come around very often. So it's pretty cool. And obviously it was awesome to see all three, have a decent game and really, impact the game in some way.
Yeah, and with the Hugheses and the Kachucks, do you think it helps that all these like brother tandems are American? Do you think that helps with the publicity of them?
I think it does to some extent because I think more so. Obviously, we haven't seen the Olympics in several years as far as NHL players playing there, but at the same time, once the league can kind of strike a deal with that and get back to the way things used to be, it's going to be huge for American players because the U.S. is more loaded, I think, than it's been in a long, long time. You've got you got the Hugheses, you got the Austin Matthews, you've got all this talent that the United States probably hasn't had in the last 15, 20 years, maybe. So I just think it's definitely good for USA Hockey, and you see a lot of we saw it this past year with the draft. Like there was a ton of talent from the U.S. team. So I think, it's going to continue to grow from there. And, these kind of guys being the focal point of that it's going to be huge, I think, going down the stretch the next couple of years.
Yeah. I agree. I do think that the star power that you're looking at, and it's always weird to look at from a Devils fan because we've always had really good players like in the history, but never star-studded players, like never the guys who are on the covers, never the guys, although Marty was on the cover of the video game a couple times, but that's right. Neither here nor there. I want to talk about trophies, awards. The Devils obviously got their first MVP trophy, Hart Trophy winner in Taylor Hall in 2018. And then when they drafted Hughes, there was already talk this guy is going to be the guy who gets it, who gets the second. And the first couple of years, they were what they were. But he looked the part last year. I don't remember if he got votes or not, actually, off the top of my head, but he looked like he was going to. This year, he looked like the favorite for, a hot second. Then he got injured. I wrote at the time that I thought that injury was going to kind of knock him out of the race because I thought he was going to miss more games. But now we're looking at Jack Hughes has the most points per game of anybody in the league by a lot. Quinn Hughes, I think he still has the most points of any defenseman. And then Luke Hughes is probably going to be head-to-head for the entire season with Connor Bedard. Do you think it's possible that we could get a Hughes sweep of the awards here?
I mean, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities because if you just look at it, like you just said, Hughes is, he did miss the 5 games, which, for most guys, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that can impact your chances when you're going for an award like that and trying to put up those numbers on a nightly basis. But I think with Jack Hughes, clearly it doesn't matter because he can have these games where he gets, 2, 3, 4 points and it's, looks like he's not even trying out there. So I think he definitely is going to be in the Hart Trophy conversation all year. I don't think there's any doubt about that, barring, anything like another injury, something like that. That's the only thing that's going to derail him, I think, at this point. And then as far as the Norris, I mean, Quinn Hughes has looked phenomenal. Like, obviously he's always been billed as kind of a top tier defenseman, the guy that, has that potential. But this year, I mean, he's been sensational. Like, he's currently on pace for 86 assists, which is pretty impressive. I mean, you just don't see those type of numbers. And if you look at who's won the Norris in recent years, you're talking about guys that are putting up those monster numbers, your Erik Karlssons, Cale Makars, guys like that. So, I think the first two is, I think it's fair to say that Jack and Quinn easily have a case. But I think the third, being the Calder, it's obviously going to be an uphill battle. Luke Hughes, obviously being second in points right now, he's having a great season. I don't think there's any other way to say it. Like, I think even getting that little bit of experience last year in the playoffs, I think was huge. I mean, it, might not show on the stat sheet as much, but getting that time in the playoffs and, being up at the end of the year was massive for him. But I think, obviously with Connor Bedard, you're talking about a guy that, has been billed as the next McDavid, next Crosby, what have you. And, barring him going on a super cold stretch or, going down due to injury, I would assume he'll be right there. But then again, if Luke Hughes goes on a hot run, our voters going to see that and just not automatically want to say, Bedard deserves those votes. Obviously, I think the one thing that Hughes has in his corner is the fact that he plays on a very good team. Obviously, Bedard, there's not much for Chicago to play for. I think they have 6 or 7 wins at this point in the year. So, they're not going to be vying for any playoff spots or anything like that. So I just think that's probably the toughest out of 3 if they were to sweep the awards. But I think Luke Hughes still deserves to be in that conversation.
Yeah. I definitely think he's in that conversation. I think he's pretty close to locked into second just because, he's second in points and he's the defenseman, right? So everybody else that's kind of up there. I think Cooley is up there.
Cooley is there. That's probably really the only other name that I would say is like in that conversation. Like those are probably the 3, I think, in my opinion.
I saw Rossi is up there, but I just don't.
I don't think it's sustainable personally.
Yeah.
Nothing against him, but I just think those are your 3.
Yeah. And then guys like Fantilli, who we thought was going to be up there, he's not up there, and he has the same issue as Bedard with the Columbus looks terrible. So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit here, though, because you brought it up a couple minutes ago about the goaltending and how it's still an issue. And, Vitek Vanecek looked good through 2 periods and then fell on his face in the third. That's really all you can say. He's been doing it all season. He has one disastrous period that almost or sometimes takes the Devils out of the game. That being said, it was very known that the Devils asked about goaltending all offseason. They didn't like any of the deals, and now I'm looking at it where, Connor Hellebuck signed a long-term deal with Winnipeg. John Gibson is playing for an Anaheim team that kind of wants to win sometimes. The Arizona Coyotes definitely want to win, so their goalies aren't available. So what I'm kind of getting at is, do you think the Devils are going to make a deal? Do you think they're going to do it soon? Where are you with the Devils and goaltending and kind of playing the market?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, no secret that goaltending has been the top issue this year. It's, a team that's given up almost 4 goals a game. That just can't happen to a team that's trying to contend for a cup. Just that simple. But I feel like it's a little too early to panic, and I just don't know, I don't know that teams are going to be willing to deal at this point. I think the Devils, I would assume, would have more of a wait and see approach, whereas see what Vanecek, see what Schmid, see what they give them the next, 15, 20 games into the new year, and just kind of once the trade deadline moves closer, I think you're really going to see, are they happy with that position? And if these numbers are, kind of still in this ballpark, I think at that point you're going to have to make a move. By that point, maybe the Ducks have fallen out of it and Gibson would be an option. I feel like that is probably the name that I would say most likely would be somebody that the Devils would be attracted to later in the year. But I do think they're going to stand pat for now. I just don't see teams giving up this early. And the teams that are, kind of in the bottom, your Columbuses, your Chicagos, don't really have a ton to offer in the goaltending department. So I feel like, the Devils are just going to stand pat for now and see what happens.
Now, just kind of touching on Gibson, do you think that would be a good move? Because I know Gibson has had some rough stats the past couple of years, but he looks better this year.
It's always hard to say when you're on a younger, not as great team. I mean, obviously the Ducks have definitely had their moments, but it seems like, they're kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. I think that's the kind of thing where the price tag is going to be huge. If, Devils would just have to give up a pick or two and, maybe a lower tier prospect, that's something that, you take the shot if you need goaltending help that bad. But I don't know if he's the type of player that they're going to, unload the farm for, so to speak. So I think it's really going to depend. I think they would like to stand pat, I would think, if they can. Obviously, during the postseason last year, we saw how good Akira Schmid can be when he's on. He obviously also had some moments where he wasn't on and has struggled, starting off this year. I thought he might kind of be a breakout type of performer, but that hasn't happened quite yet. But we're also only a quarter into the season. So I think it's still overall just a wait and see approach, and then see where you're at once the trade deadline rolls around.
So I kind of want to talk about the trade deadline, talk about like who's in it. Just looking at the standings right now, it's been a weird year. It correct me if I'm wrong, but it just doesn't. I don't see a lot of great teams. Like the great teams are kind of really good, right? And then the really good teams are now good. It seems like the entire league has taken a step towards parity, and which is great, especially for the Devils, who have kind of looked like Dookie this year, and has still, right before you came on, I was kind of going through that. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot after having everything go wrong. Losing your top two centers, and the goalie's playing like terrible. So that being said, I'm seeing a lot of the models, like our friends at Evolving Wild, Mike McCarty, Dom Lucian at the Athletic. All of these models still have the Devils at 80% and above to make the playoffs. Is that your analysis as well? Do you see this Devils team as like almost a lock to make the playoffs still?
I still say that I would be very shocked if they miss the playoffs. I just think it's, obviously the start they've gotten off to is not what you want by any means. But at the same time, like you look at it, they're only 4 points out of second place in the Metro. So, I mean, yeah. I feel like you take that all day. And if it wasn't for the Rangers playing better than I thought they were even capable of so far, they'd be right there, even in a first place discussion. Obviously, being 12 points back is a huge gap, but it's not, if the Rangers cool off at some point, which will they ever, we'll see. But I think that it's just so early. There's no reason for this team to panic. The talent is there. And I feel like I would be absolutely shocked if they weren't one of those top three teams in the Metro, because you look at it, you've got the Rangers, obviously, they most likely would be locked into one of those top spots. I'm a big fan of Carolina. They're right there too. And I think the Devils are, going to be right in that conversation for potentially the second or third playoff spot in the Metro. I think this team is way too talented to miss the playoffs outright after what they did last year and, the off season that they had.
Chris Bengel, CBS Sports, I want to thank you so much for coming on, but I do, before we let you go, I want to give you a minute to kind of promote everything you're doing. Do you have any cool articles coming up? Let everybody know how they can sign up for your newsletter. Just kind of go nuts and promote everything you got going on.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, obviously. So you can follow me on Twitter, X, at Bengel of CBS, and I write the afternoon gambling newsletter for CBS. You can just go to cbssports.com. Under any article, there should be a little sign-up thing. You just put in your email, and you'll be registered for both the AM and PM newsletter. And then I'm actually working on a piece that should be up potentially on Friday, ironically enough, about the Devils and the Penguins, as far as two teams that have been very disappointing in the East so far this year, and just kind of do a deep dive into that. So that's what is coming up the pipeline shortly here in the next coming days.
We will definitely share that, even though it hurts our feelings a little bit, but that's okay. It's not untrue.
It is definitely early. I think, like I said, I will be surprised if we're sitting here in, April, May, what have you, and the Devils aren't a playoff team. I'll be, absolutely shocked. So,
and maybe we'll bring you on again soon in happier times, maybe in that April or May time, and we'll talk playoffs. That'll be a lot of fun. Absolutely. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, we'll definitely have you on again soon. It was a lot of fun, and then we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Chris. That is Chris Bengel of CBS Sports, NHL writer, originally from Philadelphia or South Jersey.
South Jersey. He's a Jersey
Yeah.
boy. We bring the Jersey boys on the Jersey podcast, Sam.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
And that's the thing, is that I feel like because the Flyers had such a stranglehold on this area for so long, and just because you go to school and everybody's wearing the Flyers jersey, you go to see whatever, that people just assume you have to be Flyers fans. And no, this is still New Jersey. The South Jersey bunker exists because this is still New Jersey. And I still run into Devils fans all the time. And, and there's always that acknowledgement because, we're not few and far between, but we're definitely less than we want to be. And, it's something, all the way up from Trenton, all the way down to Cape May, and then all the way on this west side of New Jersey. I'm going to start just like trickling in Devils stuff. Just try to get some fans in here to kind of even things out with the Flyers because we are Jersey's team. We are the only New Jersey team. And that's the thing, is that the people who live in South Jersey have a lot of Philadelphia characteristics, right? It's like an extension of Philly in parts, but they still are Jersey, right? And they still take pride in New Jersey for the most part. The people who were like born and raised in this part of New Jersey still rep New Jersey, still claim New Jersey, still fight anybody who says, the armpit of America and all this dumb stuff that people say about this fantastic state that we live in. So I kind of want to take that pride and take advantage of it, Sam, and make them Devils fans. Let's work on making them Devils fans. But roundabout way to say, how great was Chris, though? That was a great interview.
It was a very good interview.
It kind of sounded like I patted myself on the back, and that wasn't the intention. But no, I thought he had great answers. He was fantastic.
No. I've like I told you before the podcast started. Oh, a new person on, a fresh face. So I enjoyed it.
And that's the thing, Sam, is I'm always trying to, we have our friends. We have the people we bring on all the time. And, there's only so many Devils reporters. So we bring them on. They have that close-knit relationship with the team. So you definitely want to have them on as much as you possibly can. We've had a couple people on from the Devils themselves that have come on a couple times. But I always want to do two things. A, I want to get people that will get people excited and get people, impressed. And CBS Sports is a national brand, so I want to bring on somebody from CBS Sports, especially if they're writing about the Devils. But I also want to get new voices out there, right? Chris might not be, he's not Elliot Friedman, but he's writing as much as he is. So you want to kind of get those people out there, and I think Chris is doing a great job, and he's writing like a madman. He's got betting newsletters. He's writing about hockey every day, and I want to get people in Sam, like so many years ago, you just kind of gave me a chance and you're like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? And now look at where we are, and we want to kind of always remember that, it takes one chance to kind of let somebody shine, and you don't know how good they are until they get a chance. And, these people are writing, and I say this with pucksandpitchforks.com. And this is a great segue into what I'm doing with pucksandpitchforks.com, but I will literally hire everybody. Apply to pucksandpitchforks.com, and I will hire you. And you get paid by the view. I'm very open about that. But you get paid more working for me than you do for the other websites because of the bonus structure that I've actually put through from my own money. Anyway, I will give you a chance. Because if you're not a good writer right now, I fancy myself a good writer. Sam, with the end of the old website, they calculated how many articles I've written. How many articles do you think I've written at pucksandpitchforks.com?
3,240.
It's 2,200, but that it still felt like a lot. But that's just at Pucks and Pitchforks. That doesn't include my work for Fansided, my work for Puck Pros, my work for all the other websites that I've done for Fansided.
Yeah, but was my guess accurate if you added all those?
I don't know those numbers because I'm not an editor at the front page, so I don't have access to those. I think I've done 500, so you're close for Fansided, like the front page. I think I've done around 500, so we're probably about 2,700, and then the other one, so we're probably at like 2,800. The point being, I have a lot of articles under my belt, and some have been criticized, some have been home runs. So I kind of know what I'm doing with a lot of this. Vis-a-vis, I will share that knowledge with anybody who wants to become a writer. And I'm not trying to big shot anybody, but some of my writers have become full-time writers. They started with me. I worked with them. I tweaked them.
I mean, look at Vinny Parisi.
Yeah, Vinny does this full-time now.
Vinny didn't know how to read, and now he can read and write because of Nick Villano.
I'm not going to go that far, but
no, I'm kidding.
Vinny
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah.
But Vinny is, he's, I call him my star pupil. He's somebody who took what I said and kept working. And honestly, I'm not going to edit your stuff viscerously because I don't want to change your voice. I want you to build your own voice. But, and then we got, John, who writes for me now, works for Philly Hockey Now. And, he's doing this as like a side gig, like a major gig. And, we got people. Sam, I've said, I'm as famous as I want to be. I'm not looking to piggyback this into a full-time gig anywhere. I have a job I really like during the day. And then at night I get to be, I get to moonlight as a sports writer. It's a lot of fun. I get to do it in between, play wrestling with my child, and hanging out with my wife and sending Christmas cards that are on Sam Woo's fridge. So,
yes.
So, point being is I love using this platform as a jumping off point for these names you might not have heard of. And Chris just showed why we want to give those chances because, sometimes you bring them into the interview and they knock it out of the park.
Yeah. By the way, Nintendo Wii Super Chat a while back says Happy Hanukkah to the Hughes family. Wanted to put that in.
And honestly, I've had a couple people come into my DMs, and I don't want to shut them out because I'm sure that they were private for a reason. But people were very excited that these are Jewish NHL players. And they're open about their faith and about their the culture of it all, and I think that's amazing. I've expressed my excitement for diversity in this league, and I've been critical of the league in general about how it deals with diversity. I think the league is just its own worst enemy in a lot of these stupid things that it does, but. I think it's great that we have these players that get to celebrate their diversity and celebrate their, the fact that they're Jewish and it's a rarity in the NHL. But not only is it the Hughes brothers, but these are star players, and these are, we talked about with Chris that these are players that are going to be front and center.
They're going to be sweeping it. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, that would be cool. That's going to be my first article for the new website is I'm going to talk about that, about whether I think the Hughes brothers have a chance at sweeping the awards. I think it's, I just kind of want to play around with it. There's sometimes I go into these articles where I don't know what I'm going to think, but I want it to I'm going to write it and my opinion's going to evolve as the words come on the paper or the website as this is. So, look for that tomorrow morning. That's going to be a good one. Yeah, I listen. I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this team because since Nico Hischier came back, waiting 4 or 5 games. I'm gonna be honest, Sam. I had to play husband on Friday, so I missed the Sharks game. Kind of glad I did. I'm kind of glad I did. It was there was a lot of criticism of Lindy Ruff after that game. I think that comes with the territory of playing back-to-back and then having 3 days off. But there was a lot of criticism of playing Schmid on back-to-back nights. And I wanted to play Schmid going into Thursday's game, but seeing the workload that he played with and, having to play extra minutes and facing, I think he's faced what he's faced, 46 shots on Thursday. That kind of changed my opinion, and I would have started Vanacek on Friday, but he didn't. But it's not an egregious decision that he started Schmid because going into Thursday, most people wanted Schmid to play the back-to-back. The Sharks came out on fire. the Sharks are a different team in this road trip. They almost beat the Rangers, and then they did beat the Islanders. Huge. That was one of the, I think Chris was talking about, or I don't know, maybe I was listening to a podcast where we talk about, three teams almost for the first time in history gave up 3-goal third period leads and lost. And the Islanders were one of those teams. And I think that, again, the loss doesn't look as bad now because the Sharks are playing really well. But again, you can't give up 6 goals to that team no matter what. And the defense is a problem. There's a lot of problems with this team. Was the penalty kill really bad in that game, Sam? You're going to have to tell me because I didn't watch.
I don't really remember. Everything was bad. I mean, everything was bad.
You want to forget that.
It was uninspired hockey, and it just seemed like all the players were just waiting for another player to make it happen. And as soon as the Devils would get a momentum shift, they would make mental errors. A lot of mental errors. Even Schmid made a mental error by coughing up the puck. He could have just covered it up. So really, it's again, it's and Timo Meier came back. I'm not going to harp on him because he's obviously coming back, hurt. He's not 100%, but he's back, so to speak. But Jesper Bratt yesterday stepped it up, and that goal, he rewarded the team with the victory because, blowing a 5-2 lead. Vancouver's a very good team, very, very good team. So it's not like they that 3-goal lead. But the problem, what I saw, is again, they simply can't play defense. So they built up this 3-goal lead in the third period. For the first, maybe 5 minutes, they played a very tough defensive style, and they let off the gas pedal, and guess what? They slowly crept back in, the Canucks, and tied it. And after they tied it, then it's like, okay, now we have to get back on the gas pedal. Yeah. And the Devils were lucky, but they also created their luck in the end there. And it was just, I think the problem with this team is they have to be on the gas pedal at all times in order to be good, but that's really unsustainable because, look, if they're putting pressure in the offensive zone, guess what? You're not going to give up any goals. That's and that puck possession and puck management that Lindy keeps on alluding to about eating the clock, the possession game, they have to work harder in the offensive zone to play better. I'm not so sure that that's entirely the way to go. They got to learn how to play defense, and they can't be leaving guys in front of the net like that. They're just getting schooled left and right.
Yeah, I'm going to make 2 points. First, I'll address the defensive thing. The Devils have very good poke checkers, but that's all they have. They don't have body guys. They don't have
Agreed. Yep.
I'm not even talking about big hits. I'm talking about like push somebody out of the way. Just use your body to block shots or to block a guy from getting into places. They use their stick exclusively, and it's out. That narrative is out, and I'm Sam. I'm going to put my head through a wall if I see the Devils play the man instead of where the man's going to go, and then try to poke check it at the last second, and watch the guy fly by him. The angles. It's like these guys all failed geometry class. The angles that they're taking on these guys are stupid. I'm sorry, I don't want to say that, but you got to have better hockey IQ. You got to know that you need to cut off the man, and if you're going to use your stick, just be in front of him, keep him in front of you, and then you can poke it, and then this guy's probably going to try to deke you, and then that's when you poke it. But they're skating at the man like they're going to hit him, and then going for a poke check. And honestly, Sam, it must be every single time that the guy just skates right through him and it's a 2-on-1, or it's a guy getting priority reservation in the offensive zone. So Ryan McGill really needs to evaluate the system, or the whatever you want to call it. The how they play the game is wrong. It just is. Like, the tape is very clear that how you play the game is wrong. Now, speaking to that point, how this team plays with a lead, especially a big lead, is insane. Because you keep doing the same thing and expecting the result to change. They went into that third period, and you said it. For the first 5 minutes, they were aggressive. They were doing fine. I'm like, okay, we'll see. But I still have an issue because they're playing defensive hockey only. They're not pushing the puck. They're not pushing for chances as much. They're not trying to turn that defense into offense. You saw how they scored that the third goal, and it was just back on your heels and hoping for the best. And then when they scored, they didn't change the play style. They just kept sitting back on their heels and hoping for the best. And Vancouver dominated that period. It wasn't like 3 fluky goals. Vancouver could have scored 5 or 6. Vanacek, after actually bailed them out in a couple of them, he made mistakes in others. So, give and take there, but you have to be aggressive because you can't play that other style. You are not this trap team. That's not who you are. You can't play that style. You play aggressively, and good things happen. And you kind of mentioned it before that the best defense for this team is a good offense. Be in the offensive zone. Be in that zone, and they can't, turn it around and take it to the other zone. I understand there's a lot of stats that are out there. And Megan Shaka just shared stats on 2-on-1s. And surprisingly, the Devils are in the top 5 in the entire league on giving up 2-on-1s. It's accentuated because of everything else the Devils are doing and how just terribly they're playing on defense. But they actually don't give up that many 2-on-1s compared to a lot of the other teams. Yeah.
I saw that as well. And this is where I go crazy on those analytics. What it doesn't tell you is on those 2-on-1s, the poor defense, the defenseman, the goalie takes the shooter and the defenseman takes the trailer. The Devils do it completely opposite. That's why they're giving up a lot of goals.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think the stat is meant to.
Yeah, the stat has its because I read another social media post from another, one of these Devils fan sites, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. It's not the end-all, be-all. There's a lot of – those stats are good tools, but if you want to add in the other analysis, how other teams play the 2-on-1 versus the Devils, there's a big difference. The Devils fundamentally is at times, I don't know what they're doing, how they're playing it. It's always inconsistent. Whereas other teams, if you watch how, if there's one defenseman coming back and there's a 2-on-1, it seems like the goalie and the defenseman are on the same page, whereas the Devils are all over the place. Go observe and watch it next time it happens. It's never. I
100% agree with you. It's very clear they are terrible at how they play the 2-on-1, and I think that goes into the narrative is that you aren't defending correctly, and it's not a matter of skill or talent. It's a matter of system and thought process.
I wonder though, is it the players gallivanting on their own, or is it the coaching? Sometimes, like when you coach, like if you've ever coached, little kids or whatever, some of these players, they'll just do whatever they want. They're not going to listen to you. So I don't know if it's the system or not.
If the coach can't teach the system, then it's the coach. If these players are going out on their own and doing their own thing and it's a mistake, and the coach can't fix it, then it's the coach.
Then it means
if the coach's system is bad, then it's the coach. Both these things are the coach.
Yeah.
The coach has to be better, and I tend to blame McGill more than Ruff on that. I understand that it's the same Ruff system that he had in New York. There was aspects of it in Dallas and Buffalo, but McGill is running the system, and I'm trying to figure out, besides losing Severson and Graves, because a lot of people are pointing to that, and I think it's because it's easy, but they're not. Their replacements aren't the problem. The replacements for Severson and Graves are Luke Hughes and Colin Miller, and now and Simon Nemitz. Luke Hughes and Colin Miller have been really good. Colin Miller was actually really bad yesterday, but Colin Miller, for the most part, since he came back from his injury, has been really good. And Luke Hughes might be the Devils' best defenseman. So those replacements aren't your problem. Your problem is Jonas Siegenthaler and John Marino. Jonas Siegenthaler and John Marino.
They've regressed from last.
They look like replacement level players, and they still have to play big minutes. Jonas Siegenthaler played more minutes than anybody. I think he played 26 minutes last night. He did not look good. He never looked good.
Oftentimes, again, when Marino bulked up over the summer, did he lose some of his speed and agility? I need to actually watch old film from last season, and why the change? Because it's the same assistant coach, right? It's the same players, different year, And I know a lot of fans are like, "Oh, I want Burnett. We're a bunch of idiots. We should have fired Lindy. We should have Burnett. It's all Burnett."
Burnett coached the offense. This has nothing to do with Burnett. Sorry, it's that narrative.
Of course it is. Well, I'm just making fun of it too, Nick. But it's I don't know. I need to see more. I wish I was in that locker room. I wish I can listen in and see where that problem is. Is it the coach or is it the players? Ultimately, it's the coach. They're the ones that get fired, and the players ultimately they get traded or released or not re-signed. It's hard to tell sometimes.
Now, before we go, you kind of talked about the players. I want to talk about Timo Meier with our last 5 minutes. We need to calm down. I'm not doing 8 years of this Timo bashing. Do I think he played well last night? No, he didn't play well. He had a bad game. But let the kid, he had some chemistry issues early in the year. Then he finally got on the right line and went gangbusters. And then Hughes got hurt. Okay, they kind of knocked him off his pedestal a little bit. And then he got hurt, and then now he's slow to return. But they thought he could come back. He could miss no time, and then he missed 5 games, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, whatever's happening to him is frustrating. It's weird. It's probably painful, and he probably tried to rush himself back because he thought he could come back that night. So,
by the way, sorry, super chat. Max says Timo does not belong on the third line. Do you agree?
So that line should work, and it's not. So that's one of two things. Either you need to give it a couple more games to build chemistry and build off of what they've already shown, or you need to separate them immediately. Dawson Mercer, maybe he's not a center. But I'll tell you what, I didn't hate what I saw from Alexander Holtz yesterday, and I haven't hated what I've seen from him in a while. He seems to be really fine with whoever he's with. Now, ideally, I want Holla on that line. And Hughes just has to take faceoffs. He just has to get better at it. And he just needs time to get better at it. And if he's not getting better at it, tie guys up. Try new things. Try things that aren't just try to win the faceoff. You gotta do something, or just shoot the puck down the ice off the faceoff. Just use that quick hand and that speed. As far as Meier on the third line, ideally you want him in the top 6. You want him next to Hischier or Hughes. You had him next to Hischier early in the season. Didn't really work. I would love to have a line of Toffoli, Hughes, and Meier. I think that line was playing really well. And then you can have, what is it, Brat, Heischer, and who's the other guy on that line? Why
Toffoli?
am I blanking? No, Toffoli. I have Toffoli with Hughes. You can put Mercer on Palat. Yeah, they have Palat on that line. And then you could have Mercer, Haula, and Holtz together. Although I wouldn't even do that, Sam. I would put Haula, Mercer, and Lazar together. And then I would put Holtz back in that line with McLeod and Bastian. Because sometimes when something works, you just got to do it. And McLeod, Bastian, and Holtz doesn't make sense, but it works. So why stop doing it? Holtz, by the way, looks...
Do you know which line I would like to see?
What?
People would kill me. McLeod, Meyer, and Holtz.
The only reason I disagree with you is Bastian is a below replacement level player when he's not on a line with McLeod, and he's amazing when he's on a line with McLeod. He is the most volatile player I've ever seen when you take away his center.
Well, I would take away Bastian from the lineup to try that line. That's all I'm saying.
So is that like when you bring Brendan Smith in as a forward? Because then you gotta have then you're having who's your lines then? Then it would be Lazar, Bastian.
I just for whatever reason this is the eye test. I haven't seen Timo Meyer look comfortable with anybody so far. He has scored, but
he looks just fine with Hughes and Toffoli. They looked good together.
But who doesn't look fine with Hughes?
Who cares? You're paying this guy $8.5 million. Put him in a place where he's going to score.
That's true. But not saying that he's a fourth liner. I'm just trying to. But Alexander Holtz, he seems like he has an endless motor right now. Like he
looks faster.
Yeah.
Finally, took him 3 off seasons, but he looks much better. Much
and confident now.
Yeah,
it's just gaining steam every.
He was
game.
all over the ice, and now the analytics said he had a bad game. And this is where I'll fight the analytics because I think single game analytics are not good to look at. I think that they're flawed in many ways. You can be brought down by your line, which is what I thought happened. You could be put in losing situations, which is part of what happened. He started a lot in the defensive zone. But Holtz was forechecking really well. He broke up a lot of passes. He poked the puck off of sticks. Takeaways is a really flawed stat in the NHL, and they don't cover it much.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get them all in a game, and they don't seem to care to. But he probably would have had 2 or 3 takeaways if they counted it correctly. Holtz just had a really good game, and he's had a really good week or 2 weeks. He's had a really good 2 weeks. Again, I didn't see the Sharks game, so I can't tell you what he looked like in that game. But all the other ones, he's scoring. He's putting the puck on the net, which he wasn't doing as well last year. That was his problem last year. He wasn't shooting. Now he's shooting again.
I believe Holtz was the only player that actually did decent at that game against the Sharks.
In the Sharks game, yeah.
If I remember correctly.
But Sam, that's my thoughts. Let's give Meyer another 2 weeks. If he still looks like this at the end of December, okay, then let's have the Meyer conversation. But we're not ready for that yet. I am ready for the plug conversation, though.
Yeah, I'm going to plug too, but go ahead.
Yeah, check out the brand new pucksandpitchworks.com. We've revamped the site. It looks fantastic. If you're somebody who reads on your cell phone, this site looks so amazing on your phones and on your tablets. The scroll is easier. The headlines are easier to read. Everything's very crisp on mobile. Like I said, we're still kind of working out the kinks on the desktop version, but I'll be working on that tonight in the next couple of days to try to get all the content on there in a visible manner. But give us it literally went up today. And when you look at pucksandpitchforks.com, we have a brand new logo that I'm really excited about. It looks really cool. That's in the top left corner, so make sure you check that out too. But I told you I'm going to be writing about the Hughes trio, and if they can win the awards, that's going to go up tomorrow morning. Dan Rice wrote about Curtis Lazar and kind of his journey to becoming like a really good player. He talked about what's it like to be a first-round pick who doesn't do first-round pick things. He talked about a lot of really cool things with Lazar. So that's up on pucksandpitchforks.com right now. We have a story about Nico Hischier from Trey Matthews. We have a story I wrote 3 players who are kind of to blame for where we are at the start of the season. I've talked about them a lot tonight. John wrote about a couple harsh truths about the season so far, though, so that's gaining a lot of steam. We got a lot going on at pucksandpitchforks.com right now.
I just want to answer one question before I plug. Michael Miranda is asking, if we did the offseason over again, would you keep Graves, Severson, and Tatar, or pay Timo Meier to stay again? If I were to do it all over again, it'd be the same exact way that Tom Fitzgerald did it. Graves and Severson, if you have them in the lineup, how do you expect Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec to get any kind of playing time in the NHL? We want them to get their feet wet right now. They would just log so much ice time if you were to keep Graves and Severson. There's only 6 spots, sometimes 7, but 6 spots. I don't know if you agree with that, Nick, with my assessment.
Their contracts are atrocious.
Yeah.
Both of them.
And
both Severson and Graves.
And if you were to ever trade Timo Meier, other teams will pay a big price for Timo Meier down 4 or 5, 6 years from now. So depending upon the situation,
he's still young. It's the narrative is insane. It's insane. He's in the first year of an 8-year contract. He's a 40-goal scorer.
Yeah.
And
on a personal level, from what I've heard, and I know John from JCB Architectural stated to me that out of all the players during the signing, that was the nicest and most personable, it was actually Timo Meier. Out of all of them. Not saying that none of them are nice, but he seemed like he was the one that was really going out of his way for the fans. When that debacle happened outside of the arena, fans were having trouble getting into that autograph signing. But it was Timo Meier that went out of his way to sign autographs and really be personal, not just an autograph factory. Like sometimes those things are.
Yeah, a lot of those they can be like exactly like an assembly line.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. He seems to really fit in with what this team wants as far as personalities and So first of all, Tatar was getting healthy scratched a lot in Colorado. Severson's hurt right now, and the Penguins' defense is a mess. Yep. So I don't know where this thought process is coming from. Meier, you want the star player over 3 mediocre players 10 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. If I were to redo the offseason, I would trade for a goalie.
Yeah.
That's how you'd redo the offseason.
Yeah.
And the one I would probably trade for is I'd probably sell the farm for Demko. And I know we made him look a little silly last night, but he's been Vezina level. So,
Agreed.
So that's that. That's what I would do differently.
Yeah, and one thing I want to plug, and a couple things. I'm going to put it out on social media. Vote for Peyton of American Whiskey. She's vying to be the #1 bar boss. I'll have those links out. I'm going to be plugging that for the next week. We just want to help our good friend out, Peyton, score high in that contest. And also, Nick, I'm doing Cameo right now. For 5 years, I got rejected. And then yesterday, I being persistent that I am, I guess I'm a celebrity right now, and I'm doing Cameo. So if you want me to say happy birthday to anybody or Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, for $5, I'll do it. If you want me to talk smack, you got a Ranger fan at work you want me to talk smack to, As long as I'll keep the hits clean. You tell me what to say, I'll say it. I don't care. I'll make enemies through Cameo. That's what I do. And also,
so your price for your pride and your ethics is $5.
Five. Because I wanted to make it affordable for the fans. I don't want to be like that greedy guy. Who I really want to bang for money is corporate videos. It's $1,995 for corporate videos. So if you want me to speak at your corporate event, you can do a Cameo, and I'm open ears. I'll even do a live speech about how a little podcast that could is now this big Let's Go Devils podcast, and state of the fan address at pucksandpitchforks.com. I'll tell you those war stories, But yeah, Jersey Bar Boss, I think Andy A says. Yeah, and also, by the way,
how do we get to the voting?
Oh, I'll put the links out, and you can retweet it, Nick. We'll talk off air on it because we got to help Peyton out because
of course
she takes care of all you guys. And John M says, "And Crew Brew is delicious, boys. Had my first pint before the Sharks game. Very light and refreshing. Thank you, John M." Also, one thing else I'll plug is January 6th is the Asian night at the Devils game when the Devils play Vancouver Canucks. We're also going to have Rangers Suck Fortune Cookie Night in American Whiskey, the Fine and Crew Brew promotional giveaway. And we've got other things to talk about in the future about our tailgate at the outdoor game, all that stuff. Anyway, I'm done plugging, Nick. I got to hit the button right now.
We're good.
I'm trying to find it. Here we go.
Bum ba-dum ba-dum da-dum da-dum.
Oh, no wonder it wasn't working. Because I had the volume on 0. Anyway. Yeah, Ted needs some Ant Crew Brew. Anyway. All right.
I need some Ant Crew Brew.
Yeah. Nick, text me. Well, I'll have to ship it to you. Somehow. I don't know. Apparently it's illegal to do that. Anyway. Go to the new pucksandpitchforks.com. Dropping the podcast at midnight. Till next time, let's go Devils.